So hello guys, welcome back to the complete Python series. In this video, we are going to see about constructors and destructors in Python. So before moving further, let us see what is a constructor. Constructor is nothing but a special function in a Python. This function is used to initialize variables of the class. Destructor is used to destroy all the variables once the object is been destroyed. Now let us see few important points of constructors and destructors. In Python, we use init method as a constructor, while we use del method as destructor. Constructor is used to initialize all the member variable when the object is been created, and destructor is used to destroy all the member variables when the object goes out of scope. We don't need to manually call a constructor. Constructor is by default call when an object is been created. Similarly, we also don't need to call destructor. Destructor is by default called when the object is destroyed or the object goes out of the scope. These were some basic concepts of constructor and destructor. Now let us understand how to write a constructor. So before writing constructor, let us create a class named myClass. And inside this class, we have to write a constructor. Constructor is special function. So let us create a constructor. Now we are using init method as a constructor in Python. Now all the functions inside a class should contain self as the first parameter. This is because self holds the current reference of an object. Now inside this constructor, we can just print that we are inside a constructor. Now let us create an object of this class myClass. So I will create object C equal to myClass. Now the object has been created. Now let us run the code. You can see that we are getting output as inside a constructor. This is because as soon as the object is been created, this init method is been by default called in background. In Python, we have two types of constructor, that is default constructor and parameterized constructor. The default constructor is a simple constructor which does not have any arguments to pass. So this constructor is a default constructor. This is because we are not having any argument in this. So let us write parameterized constructor. Now the constructor should have first parameter as self, and then we can pass extra parameters, that is a and b. Now as we have passed this a and b as extra parameters, so this constructor is known as parameterized constructor. So inside this constructor, we can just calculate sum of a plus b. And then print the value of sum. And before printing the sum, let us print that we are inside the parameterized constructor. Now, as we have created parameterized constructor, we need to pass parameters while creating an object. So I will pass it as 5 and 10. Now let us run the code. You can see that the constructor is by default called when an object is been created. And when we are inside parameterized constructor, we get the value of sum as 15. This was all about the constructors in Python. Now let us understand about destructor. In Python, we use del method as a destructor. Destructors are used to destroy all the object states. So let us write a destructor. So this is destructor. Now we need to pass self as the first parameter in the destructor. Now let us print we are in destructor. Now let us run the program. Now you can see that first the constructor is been called, then the sum is been calculated. Then as soon as the task is been performed, then the object goes out of scope and Python by default calls the destructor. In this program, we have manually written the destructor. But if we don't write destructor, Python by default creates and default destructor and calls it when the object goes out of scope. So this was all about the constructors and destructors in Python. Thank you.